So I've been holding on to this story for quite some time, but I'm thinking it's time that I let it go because maybe there's somebody it can help. I don't know who needs to hear my story, um, but I think that somebody do. So, as you know, I'm the host of SoloMoms Talk, and I started the podcast because I was a mom, a divorced mom, and primarily focused on the time when I was raising my two youngest sons. So I I have a story about when I about courage, about having the courage to believe. Because what the story I'm about to tell you took courage, one, and number two, I had to believe that I had to believe in God. I had to believe that somebody else was looking out for me when I couldn't look out for myself. So it was 2006. I was raising these two little boys alone. For those of you who listen to my podcast, know my story that I came on one day with them two little boys, and they were 2 and 4. And my husband had moved everything out of the house and trashed it, even the piggy bank. Then called the landlord and told her to throw us out, me and his two children out. And it was a difficult time. There were a lot of times I wanted to kill myself, but I knew that those children were my responsibility and I was all they had. I didn't have anyone to help, to support me. I didn't hear from him. When he left, I didn't hear from him for 2 years, so I gave up on him. I didn't care anymore. But life got difficult in 2006, like chicken had come home to roost, so to speak. I I'd given up the insurance agency I had started when my husband left and decided to go into real estate because I wanted to do something that was flexible. The kids were getting bigger and they were going to school, and I needed the flexibility. So I took the real estate exam, passed it, and signed up with a brokerage. This was 2006, new agent. And I didn't do too bad because I firmly believe in networking. So I had a network and I was able to do all right the first 9 months, because after the first 9 months the market crashed. I don't even think my broker survived. But I was left now with no income, no way to make an income, and the world was in crisis. What to do? I had a cousin in Florida who encouraged me to come there and try to find a job, and I did. I made some attempt, went for some interviews, but nothing worked out. And I was I was desperate, to say the least. Life seemed hopeless. And if you're alone, it's bad or not too bad. But when I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to take care of two other people? I don't even know how to take care of myself. But I had a friend in New York at the time who I'd gone to school with in Jamaica. And he sent me the link to um, you know, he sent me the link to an employment agency that he knew somebody that worked there. And so while struggling, because I didn't want to go to New York, I had visited New York in 1990, hated it, and vowed I would never return. So to be faced with the possibility of having to move there and move my kids, it just didn't feel good to me. But when I was living in Toronto, I had taken a secretarial course. I didn't want to be a secretary, but I had taken the course because, it's one of those skills that you can always use, right? And it was like something said to me, why don't you apply for a job as an admin? And I'm like, don't wanna, but okay, right? It's not about me, it's about taking care of my responsibilities. So I went online, used the site, the link that my friend gave me, and applied to two agencies, for admin positions. And maybe within 15 minutes after getting off the internet, I got a call from one of the agency, actually that same agency. And they said, we saw your resume and we'd like you to come in for an interview tomorrow. Now, I didn't say at the beginning that I was living in Atlanta and this job, the agency was in New York City. That's 900 miles away. And they said, I'd like you to come in tomorrow. So I said, well, I can't come in tomorrow, but how is Thursday? And they said, okay, yeah. So we scheduled an interview for 9 a.m. Thursday morning. Of course, I had no clue I was getting to New York, right? I was living in this three-bedroom basement apartment with my kids, and I didn't know where I was going to get my next meal from. The rent wasn't paid, and, how was I going to go to New York? So it was a, it was, I was just, and I went and I prayed, and I went to my bedroom and I knelt on my knees and I said, Lord, I just agreed to do an interview in New York. I don't know why I did it, but how am I going to get there? You know? And before I got off my knees, my phone rang. Picked up the phone. It was a friend of mine. He said, "What's up?" I didn't call him, but he said, "What's up?" I explained to him, you know, what happened, what was happening. He knew I was a single mom, etc. And he said, write this number down. And he gave me the name of the person. He said, he owes me. Tell him to give you a ticket. Hmm. So I called the guy. I said, my friend told me to call you and I need to go to New York and I need a ticket. He said, you could give me a ticket. He said, when are you going? What's your name? And when you're ready, you could go pick up the ticket when you get to the airport. So I had a ticket. Of course, that wasn't the end of the story. And of course, my lizard brain started to bring up all the things that was wrong with this scenario, right? So now I was thinking I needed clothes to wear to this interview and I needed to look professional. And I had clothes, but they needed cleaning. And the truth is, I had several pieces at the cleaners that I couldn't pick up. They'd been there for months. And as far as I was concerned, I didn't even know if they were still at the cleaners. But now I needed to go pick up this particular suit, navy suit, and I thought it was very nice, right? I didn't know how I was gonna get it. It was $15 to pick it up, and I just didn't know. So pick up the phone, called another friend, said, look, this is what's happening. I need to go pick up my suit and I have no money. He said, why don't you come over? I'll give you some money. I said, well, I can't because I have no gas in my car. He said, okay, give me a couple of hours and I'll bring you some money. Sure enough, a few hours later, he brought me $40, put $20 gas in my car, and went and picked up my suit. I had $5 left over, change that I used for New York City subway. Then I had to think about what I was going to do with those two little boys while I flew all the way to New York for a job interview. I had a son, an older son, He had we had separated, gone our separate ways when he was 18, and I called him and I said, I need to go to New York for an interview. Would you stay with your brothers? And my son just said, yes, mom, I'll do it. I said, I'll be back Friday, just a couple of days. So, you could take the car, do what you need to do. And so everything was set now, right? I made arrangement to stay somewhere um, Wednesday evening. So I flew to New York Wednesday afternoon. And I, while flying to New York, they stopped me at the airport. And they were going through my bags, my purse, and they couldn't figure out what it was they were looking at. And they came and asked my permission to go through my bag. It was my handbag. And I said, okay. I thought that it was probably my lipstick because I I had this lipstick that was in a metal case, a Lauder. And so I figured that was it. But while I waited for him to check my bag, I realized, it was like my stomach hit the floor because I realized I had a bullet in my purse. And the reason I had the bullet in my purse was because my ex-husband had threatened me with it, put it in on the dresser, and I had a gun on the bed and all this. So I put it in my purse because I wanted to take it to court to show the judge. And I'd forgotten that it was there. You hear a lot now about people getting arrested for that. And I'm telling you, and this was after 9/11. So I'm there scared out of my wits because I was already scared about this thing going all the way to New York to do this interview, leaving my kids back in Atlanta. And now I'm standing there, waiting for to be arrested because that's the story I'm telling myself. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be in the 6 o'clock news. It was after 9/11, definitely. I was going on the 6 o'clock news. But while all these thoughts, the bombardment was coming at me and coming at me, I had an epiphany. It was epiphany. It was just this calm that came over me. And it was like the Spirit of the Lord said to me, do you really think that I will do all this for you? For you to come all the way to New York so I could embarrass you? And I got this peace, this calm, this thing came over me, this peace. So the gentleman came to me and he found the bullet and he said, explain this. So I explained. I had my phone, I had pictures on the phone, so I showed him the pictures. And he said, well, I have to talk to my supervisor about this because. So I said, okay, I understand. He went to the supervisor, he spoke with the supervisor came with, explain this. So I explained it to him. I told him what was going on and how I had come to have that on me. And he said, this is what he said. I can't put this in the system because if I put this in the system, that would be it. But I also can't give you this back. Enjoy your trip. And I was reluctant to put this part in because, but it's been a long time, so hopefully it's okay. So I went, stayed with a friend. He dropped me off at Starbucks 6 a.m. the next morning so I could wait around for my interview because he had to go to work. I had the interview. This is Thursday. I went went to my cousin, took the subway, went to my cousin in Queens, and was staying with my cousin. I was going to spend the night and then fly back to Atlanta the next day, all on a buddy pass because I had no money, right? And it wasn't like before where you had to pay a certain amount, or if something was paid for me, I don't know. Maybe they paid it, but I didn't have to pay anything. So I'm with my cousin and we're talking, and I'm making plans to go home the next day. I think I got on the phone. I was telling my son what was going on, my oldest son, and that I would be back the next day. So my cousin said to me, "Where are you going? Like, why don't you just stay, hang out a couple of days and see if, you get called?" So I called back my oldest son and said, I'm gonna need to stay. I'm gonna spend the weekend and then see what happens on Monday. Now I felt bad about it because he at the time was doing ministerial duties, and Saturdays and Sundays were his busiest days, and he was saddled with my kids. But the only thing my son said to me was, "Yes, Mom, it's okay. I'll take care of them." And, I'm going to have a segue in here. Sometimes raising kids alone is tough. But the Bible tells you that children are a blessing. And even when it's difficult, we have to remember to recognize the blessing that children are. So I stayed with my cousin, and Monday I was antsy because that was the first time I've ever left those two little ones alone, and I was just a little antsy about it. But that Monday afternoon, I got a call from this. I had interviewed with two agencies on Thursday. That Monday afternoon, I got a call from the first agency, the one that my friend referred me to, and they said, "We have a 3-day job. Would you be interested in that?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I didn't know what I was doing. I just said, "Yeah, sure." And they gave me all the details, and hang out. Not too long after that, the second agency called and said, "We have a 3-week job for you. Would you like to take it?" I said, "No, I can't because I already committed to a 3-day job." And she said, "Okay, well, if the 3-day job doesn't work out, call us and we'll see if we could find something for you." So this 3-day job, this is Monday, it started on Wednesday. And I was a mess. I was torn up. I was thinking about my kids. I was thinking about my bills. I was thinking about the situation I was in, 900 miles away from home. I had no anchor. I felt adrift. But I also felt like I wasn't in control. Someone else was in control. God was in control. And so Wednesday morning, I got on the bus, got on the train. 2.5 hours later, I was on Wall Street. I walked into the 16th floor of this business, the 19th floor of this business, and bumped into another single mom, another divorced mom, raising her child alone and working. And I was there to help her. And like usual, and this is what I tell everybody, whether you're picking up garbage, cleaning up after someone else, or you're the head of the corporation, you are you Inc. And you have to work like you are you Inc. And this experience let me realize that nobody's my boss. I don't work for people and companies. I work for God. And whatever I do it as unto the Lord. And that's one of the big lessons I learned in this situation. So this is Wednesday. Thursday, the young lady came to me and said, "We'd like to keep you on. We'd like to extend you for another for 2 weeks." So, but at this point, no one knew I wasn't even living in New York. I didn't tell anyone anything. I just showed up for work. I said, then I had to tell her the truth. I left my kids in Atlanta. I don't live anywhere, and I'm just, I just came here for this job. And she said to me, she said, "Well, you can take tomorrow off. You go home, sort through your business, and I'll see you on Monday." So I realize now that I needed a place to stay for at least 2 weeks, right? So I had an aunt in New Jersey. I called her, I told her, "Look, I got a job and I need some place to stay while I sort myself out." She said, "Okay, no problem. You can come stay with me." I called my cousin the same thing because told my cousin the same thing because I wanted to make sure that I had somewhere. While on the plane returning to Atlanta, it dawned on me that this was not me visiting New York to do a job, a temp job. This was me moving, taking up my life to move it from Atlanta to New York. And I wasn't leaving my kids, I was taking them with me. And that thing scared me. It was May, middle of May. They were still in school. So it meant I had to take them out. And mind you, this is a 11 and 13-year-old boys. So imagine. Anyway, I got back to Atlanta Friday night and I called my aunt. I told her, called my cousin. I told him that I was going to bring my sons back with me to New York. They said, "Oh, no, no, we don't have any room. We don't. We can take you, but we can't take the kids." But I didn't panic. I don't know why, but I didn't panic. I said, "Okay." Saturday morning, I got up and I called the friend who had arranged a ticket for me. I said, "Look, I'm moving to New York. I have a storage unit full of furniture because I had a 5-bedroom house before that. I was living in a basement. It was 3 bedrooms full of furniture." I said, "Call your friends, tell them to bring a truck, pull it up. They can have anything they want. I'm just going to put what can hold in my car because we're moving to New York." Told my kids, "We're moving to New York." And they were like, "New York? No, mommy, we can't move to New York." But they were all right. My kids are good kids. But then I still had to find somewhere to live. So I spent all day Saturday packing up what I was taking with me and having people in and out, clearing out what I wasn't going to take with me. This time I'm having a problem with my landlord because he didn't get his rent yet. And I told him I was moving to New York. And anyway, that's a whole another story. But so when everything had died down Saturday evening, now I started to focus on when I get back to New York, when I was driving back to New York, where was I going to stay? And it wasn't even about me. I mean, I could have stayed in my car and make it work. But I had 2 kids, right? So what was I going to do? And again, another lesson is keep your contacts fresh, connect with people, make time to build connections with people. So I had a friend, I called all these people friend. This person I've never met, still haven't met him all this time. He was a mortgage broker. He moved from New York to Florida. So I never met him. And I called him and I said, since I knew he lived in New York, I said, "Do you know anybody in New York who has a room to rent?" Because I'm like, a room would do for now. And he said, why? I told him why. He said, "I have a room in Queens." And I'm like, so, okay, how much? And he said, don't worry about it. We can sort it out when you get there. So Saturday night, the night before I was supposed to leave to drive back to New York, I had a place. So Sunday morning at 6:30 a.m., got in my car, packed full. My two little boys were just stuck. One was in the front, one was stuck in the back with all our stuff, trunk full. And I got in that car and drove, and I drove, and I started driving. I drove, and I drove, and I drove. And I did not reach that room in Queens till 3 a.m. Monday morning because I got lost in New York City at night, right? And thankfully, this landlord, now my new landlord, stayed on the phone with me and guided me and talked me into how. Because I had a 2001 Toyota Camry, there was no GPS, right? And so he talked me until we got to this place. I'm telling you, I walked in that place and turned on the light, and the inhabitants just scattered all over. You know what I mean? All it was a double bed and a double mattress and box spring on the floor, a cabinet with a TV on top of it. That was it. The bathroom hadn't been cleaned in years, I don't think. But I travel with my sheets. I always travel with my spread, and I spread it over the bed, and I said, you guys lay down. And I lay down next to them. Next morning at 6 a.m., my phone rang. And my friend said, aren't you going to work? And I said, I just got in at 3 a.m. And he said, well, it's your first day. You can't not go. I figured it was right. And, I had to just run to the bathroom, do the needful, put my clothes on. And, I'd figured out the bus and everything beforehand. 2.5 hours it took me. 2.5 hours it took me to get to my destination. But a week later, the manager came to me and said to me, we like your work. We like how you work. And so we're going to extend you for another 2 weeks. But in the middle of those 2 weeks, I want to have a conversation with you about, working for us. And I'm telling you, I was able to negotiate my salary, my benefits, just everything. I mean, it was just, I don't know, it just happened. And I was in that job for 17 months. And we got laid off. It was expected. Got my bonus. Got unemployment. My landlord didn't even know because I had moved then. There's several things that happened, and that's in my book. I have a book called The Courage to Believe, and that's the in between is in that book. But by this time I was living in Brooklyn, and my landlord didn't even know I was out of work because I was never late with my rent. We had food. I mean, I even started school during that time. But 3 months later, I got a call from another manager at the same place of employment. And he asked me if I'm still looking for work because another manager in another department was hiring. And I want to tell you something about this manager that called me. Before I left, he was, he was one of those people who was going to be axed, right? And I think he was a little bit down about it because he had his family and stuff. And I found myself encouraging this man. And I think, I'm not gonna say how it happened, but maybe he remembered that I encouraged him, and he reached out to me when he knew this position had come up. And I went in, I interviewed, got the job, and before I know it, I got another job, which I stayed at for 11 years. So the reason why this is called the courage to believe is that I left Atlanta during in the middle of the financial crisis, went to work for a financial company. And when I moved, I was only guaranteed 2 weeks. Originally, it was a 3-day job that I accepted. Then they extended to 2 weeks. So I had to go back and move my kids, move my body, myself to New York. Didn't know where I was going, but God provided. And even the pitfalls, even the pitfalls. And he said, he will rescue you from the snare of the fowler. Because that's what that airport thing was. That was the snare of the fowler, just sitting there ready to ensnare me, to trap me. And God, in his mercy, moved me out of that situation, moved me out of this poverty, this desperation, and protected me and my children by moving us to New York City, and that was probably the best decision I ever made. I got to work for the most amazing company who took care of their employees. And I'm telling you, even when I got laid off, I went back, I was telling my friend, I'm working, I got a job. And he go, how do you get jobs like that? And getting jobs. There were people with MBAs couldn't get jobs and couldn't work in the kind of jobs I had. And I work with some of the most amazing people. So I don't know who needed to hear this story, but maybe this is for you. Have the courage to believe. And I'm pretty sure people thought I was crazy. And I think, looking back, I would think I was crazy too. But there's nothing crazy about God's plan for you. There's nothing crazy about having the courage to believe.